Good morning, good evening. Welcome to episode 32. We both think of the clutch dump. Guys, I am one of your hosts, Nicholas Patty. We have Ben Walther sitting opposite, sipping on a fresh, crispy Coca-Cola at 8:45 in the morning. Guys, we have the definitive and most thorough episode on Daytona coming at you right here, right now. Before I get even further into it, if you have not already, and you're listening, make sure to leave a follow or a subscription on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. There's plenty of variety. We're on all of them. So make sure to, if you like the content, if you like the episode, go ahead and drop a follow on there so you can stay up to date with everything the Clutch Dump. And if you're watching on YouTube, please do the same. Drop a subscription, ring, ding, click that notification bell, and like the video. That will probably be clipped and taken out of context. So, yes. Guys, welcome. I watched the race. I was there, and I drank a lot of beer. Ben has done a lot of research. He's watched the race on TV. He's analyzed. He's compared. He's contrasted. He's speculated. He's hypothesized. I've done none of that. But we're both here, and we have...
You just survived, and I think that's the important part.
I was zipped up in a puffer, laying on a park bench, shivering. That
describes endurance racing.
Yeah, it really does. And then it became 85 degrees the next day. We have 24 hours of racing to talk about, but we have 8 days from
madness
to practice to testing to qualifying to more practice to morning warm-ups to race. There was a butt ton of stuff going on at Daytona. Last thing, if you want to see pictures from Daytona, make sure to follow us on the Clutch Dump. It'll all be there. So Ben,
yes, hi.
Before we start, this is a re-record. We did record this episode already, but for some reason,
what are you talking about? This is the first time we've done this.
This is the first time. But Ben,
absolutely,
as I drank out of my IMSA GTP Racing Reborn mug,
you're a very fantastic GTP mug.
I want to get your thoughts overall in terms of because I don't think I actually asked you this the not first time we recorded this.
Yes.
What did you actually think of the on-track action?
Well, for starters, I'm going to say this. Endurance racing is so good for on-track action because, things like Formula One or MotoGP. Well, let's exclude MotoGP because MotoGP is always interesting.
No one's ever turned off a MotoGP race in the history of ever.
Well, they race on car width tracks in things a third the width of a car. So, they can go 6 wide into a corner. That's fine. Anyway, things like a Formula One race or your other one type of car race, if there's no overtaking going on or if there's no dog fighting, it's like, oh, that's just kind of what it is. But an endurance race where there's 5 classes, you're like, oh, everyone in GTP class is separated by 6 seconds. I guess I'll just go watch LMP2 or go watch LMP3 or GTD Pro or GTD. Right. So that's the good thing is there's always something going on.
Well, if you're sitting there and you're like, wow, LMP3, there's first place and then second place is 10 laps down and third is 15. I can
go watch something else.
Relevant classes, yeah.
Right, go watch something else. So, I don't know. Endurance races are always good for that. I think that there was some spicy bits in this race, which we'll talk about, some spins, some contact.
Hey, I just thought about
some drama. Yes.
We'll jump into that. We have some breaking news from yesterday, and then we also had breaking news from over the Daytona weekend. Do you want to cover that real quick?
What are you referring to?
Well, we have a Formula One livery, and you could put the picture here.
Oh, do we?
We'll have a NASCAR Le Mans lineup that.
Okay. So we'll talk about the livery first.
Let's do that.
I mean, for starters, best 2023 livery so far. I have to say that. I'm sorry, I'm obligated.
Guys, you can get the dad jokes without having to have little walkers.
I'm sorry. Free of charge. So,
yeah, exactly.
Haas livery. Thoughts? I mean, I think I like it.
I saw a motorsport tweet. I think it was a motorsport.com tweet.
I'll be honest.
And, with what they said, I have to completely agree. And Haas is following in this team's footsteps in terms of being back of the pack. But Minardi vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I actually think the Minardi livery looks better too. Here's the thing: I don't like the red on it. If it was the identical livery,
That's the thing.
if it was like if it was the same livery they unveiled, but instead of red, maybe it was like a medium gray, or it was just more black. I think it would look hotter. The red is like you're keeping too much of the old livery. Or I got one. Instead of the black, make it the blue and put stars down the side pod, so it's red, white, blue.
Well, if you look at there'll be pictures on the screen if you're on YouTube. If you look at the car nose on, like you can't really tell a huge difference from last year's car because you can't really see the black. I mean, from the side and from the 3/4 view, though, I think the car looks awesome. I like mostly black F1 cars. I think they look super cool. Also, like, I just really miss the 2019 Haas livery. I know that those were dark times for Haas, but I miss the 2019 livery. They were great.
My favorite livery, I think, was the 17 livery where it was gray and black and red.
Yeah, well, I think it was F1 or Haas posted a bunch of pictures of like 2016 to now, which 2016 was when Haas started. Right. And they're like, which livery do you like the best? And all the comments were like, anything but the last 3 years. I hit my mic. I'm horrible. I quit.
Be professional now. Come
on. Sorry. Just clip that. It's fine. I think the livery looks super cool. I mean, I saw this livery getting a ton of hate. Everyone's like, oh, it looks super dull and whatever and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I feel like every livery gets hate on every year. Like, there hasn't been a livery where everyone's like, that's great.
I think everybody, and I'm not just saying this because I'm an Alonso fan, I do think everybody liked the Alpine livery with the pink and the blue.
The Alpine livery was good because it was...
livery with the darker red.
Darker red was good, but I think what I'm worried about is they're going to run with the darker red for like the next 1,000,000 years.
Right. Here's the thing: is the dark red I liked was the dark red that they ran for the 70th anniversary in 2019, 20.
Yeah.
Leclerc and Vettel, Mugello. Can we just talk about? I just totally forgot that F1 ran at Mugello, and what do we got to do to get that as a permanent fixture, guys?
Dude, yeah.
I might go back and watch that on F1 TV. That was insane.
So, okay, here's the thing, though. Wheels. Did you see the wheels? Wheels are kind of cool. Well, so as we know, if you don't know, as we know, the two of us know, F1 last year with the rule change switched to 18-inch wheels as opposed to 15 or 16-inch wheels. So they now have these covers on the side, which is a place to add design, and they've got this weird, like, ninja star looking thing on them, and it's interesting. It's better than just a stripe. I don't know. Haas, well done. I think the numbers on the side, Nick, because I'm assuming you're looking at the car right now. Mm-hmm. Wow, I'm falling apart this morning. I think the numbers are really small.
Yeah, they're really small.
Like, it's just hidden way in the back there.
Listen. No disrespect to Haas. We don't need to see the goddamn team name taking up the largest part of the car. Like, why not just either leave that black, which would be hot.
Which would be sick.
Put the number there with the round L. Or do what McLaren did in the late 90s, early 2000s. Put Hulkenberg and put, who's their other driver?
Magnussen.
Hulkenberg and Magnussen in the Haas font.
I had to think about that too. I was like, I don't know who does drive for Haas.
Yeah, that's rough.
That's rough. So, I don't know, but could be potentially a big year for Haas. Well, they can actually hit the cost cap this year.
This is our year. This is our year. We got it.
They can hit the cost cap this year. So, I think, I don't know. Obviously, we can say words and they mean nothing until testing starts.
Well, even when testing starts, it doesn't mean anything.
They still mean nothing because everyone could be a Mercedes and just sandbag. But I think that possibly, I think midfield to back of the pack is going to be much closer. I think there's going to be less of a just drop off to Haas and AlphaTauri.
I don't know.
I think they're going to be a bit closer. Like, I think Haas, if you're listening to this, Gunther Steiner,
Gunther,
come
here, boy.
I'm sorry, but they're going to be last again, right? Like,
unless AlphaTauri chokes more.
Unless AlphaTauri chokes, right? Like, that's the thing. The only other person that could be behind them is AlphaTauri. Because it won't be Alpine.
Won't be Aston.
And it won't be Aston, because Fernando is carrying that team on his Spanish shoulders. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, like, right. It will be Haas or AlphaTauri. So, and I don't know. AlphaTauri's got 2 young drivers. Haas has got 2 no air quotes, 2 experienced drivers.
Experienced, not successful, but experienced.
I'd like it noted, most F1 drivers aren't successful.
Right. Well, but when people will typically say, "Oh, well, they have 2 experienced drivers," it's like, that's great.
Right.
Being last a lot does not.
Cool. You were here for a lot.
Hulkenberg literally has, I think, the record for the most experience without a podium. So I don't know if you want that.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. Like, yes, he gets about the worst rap for that.
I like Hulkenberg, but if you're sitting here with Mick Schumacher or Hulkenberg, I'm like, well, Schumacher can not get podiums about as well as Hulkenberg can.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that Hulkenberg never got podiums, but Hulkenberg was regularly midfield. Like, in his
he was also in a midfield car. He was in an Alpine, but obviously at the time Renault.
Right. So I think that's what they're...
He was back on Force India. Force India was a solid midfield team.
Right. Well, and I think Haas, obviously they want podiums. Everyone wants podiums. But I don't think they picked Hulkenberg because they want to win races. I think they picked Hulkenberg because they don't want him to crash into barriers and ruin the car. No offense, Mick. Just finish the race. Hopefully 10th and up is the goal with Hulkenberg. That's it.
Fair enough. That's a fair point.
Their goal for Hulkenberg is 10th place. That's it. That's what they want. So, I mean, Haas's mission for the season is be ahead of AlphaTauri. If they finish ahead of AlphaTauri, huge season.
Say, don't be last.
Yeah, but, I mean, someone has to be last. I mean, that's just how it works. And they're the smallest team on the grid. So, and frankly, if the AlphaTauri is last, that's a horrible season for Red Bull's second team. Considering that, let's be honest, Red Bull will probably be first, if not second.
Right.
So, I mean, if AlphaTauri finishes last, I mean, in December, we're going to have a heck of an episode where I'm assuming we'll have some quotes from Helmut Marko that we can't say on YouTube, but it should be a good time.
No, we can say whatever we want on YouTube.
Right.
TV, there's no FCC.
Right. When is the next livery launch? What do we have next?
I had to clear out all the previous notes so that I had room on my Google Docs. So
my gosh. See, I'm gonna go to people. We're very professional here. We're very professional. Don't you worry about a thing.
It's gonna be all right.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I'll put a calendar up on the screen. I'll just fix that later.
This month? Yes, this month.
Yes, it's February. Welcome to February, everybody.
Yeah,
car launches are all happening this month. Well, Nick, Patty, we'll talk about some news that, because of this is our first recording of this episode, I know your feelings on this. Garage 56 has announced their lineup for the next gen Camaro happening at Le Mans, and I will go ahead and say my words, because I think they're a bit less aggressive than old man Patty's words. So Garage 56 has announced their lineup, and it is 1 7-time Cup champion, Jimmy Johnson, 1 2-time Le Mans winner, Mike Rockenfeller, and 1 2009 Formula One world champion, Jenson Button. Sounds like a pretty stout lineup to me. Mr. Patty, I'm excited about everything happening there. You are not. Please say words.
So, I'm not going to be as impassioned as I was in the hotel room because the caffeine hasn't kicked in yet, and this is also not my first time talking.
Because we're tired. So.
Well, we're tired,
Yes.
but also don't have the shock value of hearing that you like this lineup. So
I do like this lineup.
For everybody that's about to say in response to my upcoming comments, you're just a kid. Who gives a rat's ass about your opinion? I will rationalize it, and I will also do it without cursing like I did on the episode that did not air, that was recorded. Well, half recorded. The reason it didn't air was because it wasn't recorded. Anyways, this shows that Hendrick is not taking, or Chevy is not taking this Le Mans entry seriously. No, I did not think the NASCAR was going to win. Doesn't mean you don't try. Jimmy Johnson. I don't think he went a single IMSA weekend without wrecking or spinning his car. That's number one. That's the closest analysis or comparison to Le Mans that we can do is sports car racing in IMSA in endurance racing. Could not keep the car on the track. And if it was on the track, we don't know which way it was facing. That's number one. Still on Jimmy Johnson, but number two, has not driven a season in the Cup Series car that's the next-gen car. So, granted, Garage 56 car is not identical to the next-gen car, but it's a hell of a lot closer to the next-gen car than it is anything else. And he doesn't have as much experience in the next-gen car as the entire field of current Cup Series drivers. That's number two on Jimmy Johnson. Number three on Jimmy Johnson. IndyCar did not go well. Granted, IndyCars are much faster than the NASCAR that he's going to be driving. However, in a new series, on new tracks, Jimmy Johnson does not perform well. Now, to conclude the Jimmy Johnson segment, I respect everything he's done. Again, 7-time champion, one of the most successful NASCAR Cup drivers of all time. But let's remember, they were Cup cars 10, 15 years ago, not the next-gen car. And more than that, Jimmy Johnson has never been known to be a dominant driver on road courses. So if you're sitting there and Ben's about to say, or a listener's about to say, well, then who would you have drive the car instead of Jimmy? Well, let's say we're going to keep it with Cup Series drivers. Let's say we're going to stay with NASCAR drivers. Jeff Gordon, bring out Tony Stewart. Oh, but they're retired. What if they don't want to race? Chase Elliott or Kyle Larson, both Hendrick drivers. Hell, give me William Byron. But Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson are, in any car, competitive road course drivers, number one. That's why they should be in the car. Number two, they are both champions, the same Jimmy is. Now, granted, not as many times. They also just started their careers in the Cup Series, like within the last 5 years. So give me a break. Number three, they, in Chase Elliott's case, won his championship in, no, he didn't win it in the next-gen car. I apologize. However, both of them are race winners in the next-gen car, and they are both multi-time road course winners in the next-gen car. So, they're also Hendrick drivers. So, if anybody's going to say that Kyle Larson or Chase Elliott was offered the seat at Le Mans and they turned it down, one, we haven't gotten reporting of that. Two, I strongly doubt it. Because what driver is offered a once-in-a-generation seat in a Garage 56 car, let alone a Chevy NASCAR that they both drive, with the team that they drive for, and they turn it down? Give me a break. Second part of the lineup, Mike Rockenfeller. No complaints. Cool. He's been testing the car since they started developing it. He's a multi-time Le Mans winner. He'll drive anything, and he drives it fast. Yes.
No complaints there.
Jenson Button. What the hell? So, for those of you who don't know, Jenson Button was a one-time Formula One world champion. Jenson Button then went on
which is more than most.
Japanese Super GT driving.
Where he got a championship.
Huh?
Where he got a championship.
Okay.
Just for the people.
Well, right, but no disrespect to Australian V8 supercars, but Australian V8 supercars, you can be a champion once, and that doesn't get you a ton of cred anywhere else. If you're like a 10-time, or you're like Jamie Whincup, and I think he was 7 or 8-time champion, okay, that's just dominance. Nobody came in and pushed him off. Craig Lowndes even, multi-time champion. But once, okay. So here's my problem with Jenson Button being in this lineup is he hasn't driven anything competitively for a few years. Granted, the last thing was Super GT, and I think the last season was 2019, if I'm correct.
Or 20, I think.
He's since been doing Radford Motor stuff, which is cool. Fine, but you're a road car developer. That's
Cool.
While F1 drivers are some of the most talented drivers on the planet, the planting into a NASCAR is about as opposite as it could be in terms of going from one end of the motorsport spectrum to the other. So that requires the most amount of adjustment. And while Jenson Button, I actually do like, he's one of the few F1 drivers that I like as a person. Like, I think off the track, he's just as cool as respectable as a guy as he is on track.
Mm-hmm.
I have some other options that would have been better than Jenson Button. One, multi-time Le Mans winner, 2-time Formula One champion, Fernando Alonso. Like, come on.
Hate you.
No, hey, if we're going to talk about F1 drivers, Alonso has more championships and he's won Le Mans. So, if anything, which that's the other thing is Jenson Button, to my knowledge, hasn't done any endurance driving, like 24 hours, let alone 12.
No, he's been to Le Mans.
Oh, what did he run?
LMP2 car, I think.
Oh. Shiva me timbers. I'm quaking my boots.
There's only so many LMP1 cars lying around, so.
Well, fair enough. Well, right, but if you couldn't get a seat in an LMP1 car, that says all you need to know. Anyways.
Well, he wasn't actively searching for it. They actually asked him to be in it, so,
Okay.
Calm down.
Well,
Calm down.
I'm saying is while Jenson Button is a talented driver,
obviously.
Call me crazy.
You're crazy.
I would take Chase Elliott in the next gen Cup car at Le Mans over Jenson Button.
Probably. It's probably faster.
Right. Okay. So, anyways, I've just proven my point. Hendrick is not taking this seriously. Granted, does this get them a lot of media? Sure, but Hendrick
absolutely. That's what matters.
Anyway, and listen, if you're GM and you're like, we're going to Europe and we're running a damn NASCAR, wouldn't you want it to be as obnoxious, American, and the best chance of success as possible to rub the Europeans' nose in it? So why wouldn't you give your best? Like, listen, tell me this would not be a more American, more likely, or more a higher chance of success lineup if you had Mike Rockefeller, Chase Elliott, Jeff Gordon. I got one better. Jeff Gordon, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson. And if you wanted to add a fourth, put Tony Stewart in there. He's still driving stuff, and he's still winning.
I mean,
this is even crazier. And this is just me. Jeff Gordon, Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's also still driving NASCARs. Put that car, wrap it, literally glue an actual American flag to it, the fabric. Make a quilt out of flags. Put that on the car. And put on the back a bald eagle with its beak open. And it says, if you can't handle the freedom, get the F out.
So, the purpose of this car is to not finish last, right? Like, that's the hope for this car?
Finish last.
Nick, it's heavier than a GT car.
I understand, but it makes 300 horsepower more.
Well, that's cool for the straight bit.
Most of the track is straight. It's like a 3.5 mile circuit. And I love its corners.
Le Mans?
Yeah.
Le Mans is 9 miles long.
Is it really?
It is 8.5 miles. Most of it isn't straight anymore because they put chicanes in there.
Even with the chicanes. Okay, the chicanes take up how much distance? And then you have the straights. And then you have, I don't know.
No, because here's the thing.
After the end of the Mulsanne, going down to Indianapolis, long straight. The straight coming out of the 90-degree right-hander that leads into the beginning of the Porsche curves, long straight. The front straight. There is plenty of straight on that track.
There's lots of straight.
Also, the NASCAR is going to probably have wider slicks on it than the GT cars.
Yeah, because it doesn't apply to rules.
Right.
Right. So, we shall see.
It is
I hope
cheat code.
I hope it does well, but
tell me. Okay, I'm just running wild here, and I really hope the next gen cars in Forza 8. That would be sick. because NASCARs are.
Dear Forza, put the next gen car in Forza.
Yeah, I'm gonna tweet that and tag them. I'm gonna be like day one of asking Forza Motorsport to put in the next gen car, and then day two.
Yeah.
Imagine this. Imagine. Okay, so Ben, look up something on your computer real quick.
Looking up.
1997, Japan, AC Delco, Dale Earnhardt livery. And I'm going to do the same so that I can remember specifically. Okay, you got it? Blue?
I believe so. I'm looking at a blue car.
Yeah. So that car is red, white, and blue. So
Yep.
So imagine doing a version of that livery, red, white, and blue.
Mm-hmm.
The hood being stars.
Okay.
Get rid of the sponsorship. Honestly, instead of AC Delco, you could just put America on the side.
Sure.
And then imagine how. God, it's such a missed opportunity. Dale Earnhardt Jr. climbing into that car to run at Le Mans after he and his dad ran at Daytona and got second place, by the way, in a Corvette. And then Jeff Gordon getting in there. Give it the number 24 because, the number 3 might be inappropriate.
Sure.
Put the number 24 on it. Have Jeff Gordon getting in there. It's like, I raced against your dad and I raced against you, and we're all mates. And then you have Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, who are the next chapter and generations of NASCAR. Like, Hendrick, what are we doing, guys?
Having a good time.
Okay, my NASCAR rant's over. I think I've made my point.
Okay, moving on.
Anybody that likes women and freedom would agree with me. And if you like tyranny and men, you're on Ben's side.
Moving on.
Okay.
So, if you didn't see, there was a small endurance race this past weekend.
Yeah, a teeny tiny one with 61.
In Florida, I think. And we had, we had a man on the ground. We had one Nick Patty there. But before we get into what happened with Nick, we have a new class of cars. We have these GTP cars, which there will be many pictures of up on the screen. And Nick, heck of a weekend for GTP in more ways than one. We had reliability issues, and we had a couple cars that were shockingly reliable and fast.
Also not shockingly, because we predicted it.
This is true. So if you did not watch our last episode where we talked about the row before the 24, we said that the Acuras, the ARX-06, would probably win the race. And then the Cadillacs and
freaking behold.
And then the Cadillacs, the VLMDH, and the Porsches of the 963 variety would be duking it out, and then the BMWs would be somewhere on the track. And here's the thing. We were right for the most part. So reliability-wise, thing about these new GTP cars is it's a clean slate. They replace DPI, and they have nothing in common with DPI. Other than maybe a couple electronic bits like the dashboard.
A lot of the aero on the Acura was pretty much carried over from.
Is very similar. I'll have a picture of an I'll have a picture of an ARX-06 and an ARX-05 up on the screen, and they look
which were made in 05 or 06. I don't know why they use those codes, but
this is true. But whatever. So the Acura was really fast.
Yes.
Which we're not super surprised about because they had a very successful DPI team. And it was a collaboration between HRD, Honda Racing Division, and Orica. And Orica is the...
Is it really Honda Racing Division?
Yes.
I thought it was Honda Racing Development.
Whatever. Same thing. Honda Racing, dogs.
Isn't
something.
HPD?
Honda Performance Department? I don't know. I thought it was HRD. Let me go to my nerd.
Like Honda.
See, I have HRD and Orica written down, so I'm going to go with HRD.
Your notes. I'm going to go look it up on the Googles.
Okay, so the
it's Honda Performance Development.
Oh my gosh, I'm a slacker. I'm sorry. Anyway, so the car was developed between the company that builds the Indy cars
Yes.
and the company that builds all the LMP2 cars.
Yes.
So not surprising that the car worked very well. So the Acura is unique in the fact that it's the only V6 car on the grid. So it has a 2.4-liter twin-turbo V6. V6s are really cool. Nick's just too American.
No, if it's going to be a 6-cylinder, it needs to be a goddamn flat 6.
Like noted, flat 6s and V6s are technically the same thing.
It's okay.
So 2.4-liter twin-turbo flat 6, making anywhere from 603 to 670 horsepower, because you're capped at 670 horsepower for this class.
I have breaking news as of 19 hours ago.
Okay.
NASCAR has outlawed the move that Ross Chastain did last year on the wall.
Is anyone surprised?
I didn't think they'd take it seriously enough that they were like, we need to outlaw this.
Well, it worked, so they would. If he gained one position, I don't think they'd do anything about it. But he gained like 12.
It's the only time that'll ever happen legally, at least.
Yep. So Ross Chastain going down in history.
Back to GCP.
Anyway, Acuras. We were talking about important things.
Yes. Turbo 6-cylinder Japanese cars, the most important.
Yes. Woo. Best kind of cars there are. We're just trying to see how upset we can make Nick today.
It's too early. I should have known. It's like,
so
be doing something later today and stressed out and raging at him and be like, why am I so violent today?
So the Acura was really fast, which no one was surprised about. And if you're wondering why it's in collaboration with Orica, all of the DPI cars, or the LMDH cars, are required to use one of 4 spec chassis. The 3 used at the moment are Orica, Dallara, and Multimatic. Acura uses Orica, the BMW and the Cadillac use Dallara, and Porsche uses Multimatic. So the Acura was really fast, which I was surprised even it was fast on the straights, because if you look at it, it looks like the highest downforce car. All the other cars look much slipperier.
Slippy?
Slippier. So, I mean, that's what I was surprised about. I expected that off the bank, the Acura would be the fastest. I did not expect that it would be just genuinely outpacing the Cadillacs on the bank.
Well, yeah, especially maybe top end, but the Acura made just as much torque as the Cadillac did throughout all parts of that straight.
Here's the thing. The power is very restricted on these cars. So they're all hybrid. They use the exact same gearbox, the same hybrid motor, the same battery. And they are restricted to 670 combined horsepower between the ICE and the hybrid. So it's not like the Acura was making more power. Maybe they just used it in a better way.
Right.
But, it was genuinely surprising to see the Acura. So I would not be surprised if by the time we get to Sebring, the Acura seems a bit slower. So just for balance of power and things like that. The BMW, which I would say is the disappointment of the weekend, but it's not a disappointment because our expectations were set low by BMW themselves.
Yeah, the disappointment for the weekend was the Germans that helped
the Germans.
The tank.
They should have stuck to Panzers. Maybe they were better at that. So you walked into that one, Nick. But we're going to talk about the BMW for a second because, frankly, it's the car I'm most interested in.
And in case you don't know which one the BMW is.
It's that one up top. That one. The Acura's on the bottom.
Hybrid V8. We're talking. See, so when we're talking here, this is professional diagrams.
Oh my gosh.
You can, in editing, use arrows and stuff to make it look real cheesy and funny.
Yes.
The car that go fast straight, do not look slippy. This car look more slippy.
Look slippy. Not go fast.
No expectation. Much expectation. Delivered on expectation. Also delivered on expectation. Low expectation. In the stonks arrows.
Yeah. That's exactly what this was.
Did not meet expectations. Also built tanks.
Freaking Germans, man.
Yes, we Valtteri, it's James Magic again.
Yes. So, oh my gosh. So the BMW, the M Hybrid V8, as it were, that one. Yes, thank you, Nick. So it was developed between BMW Motorsports and Dallara. So the thing about it being with Dallara and Cadillac also being with Dallara means underneath those cars are basically identical. Maybe not the aero, maybe not the splitter and the diffuser are the same, but the suspension geometry, the way that everything has to mount to the chassis will be the same between the two cars because you're not allowed to change it.
Okay.
It's the same chassis. So, and then obviously it's using that same Bosch MGU and WAE energy storage system. But the interesting thing is this car has a 4-liter twin-turbo V8. It is a twin-turbo version of their DTM motor. So, every manufacturer, for the most part, used a motor that they already had to keep development costs down. So the Acura is a variation of, it's like a hybrid between the IndyCar motor and the DPI motor. The Cadillac is a spicy version of the C8R motor. The Porsche, which we'll get to, is some weird hybrid, crazy demon child of the RS Spider. And this is a DTM motor. So, yeah, BMW came out and said, this car will not win the race. We're just hoping to finish. Right. Which was fine because they were the last horse to the race. They debuted the car the latest. There was a lot of rumor that this car wasn't coming until 2024. And then kind of in December, November-ish, they were like, oh, yeah, we'll be at Daytona.
Which, speaking of brands, I'm not 1,000% sure I can say this, although it hasn't been confirmed. But Ferrari's expected to be at Daytona next year.
That'd be pretty good.
Yeah, don't ask me how. But, yeah. So anyways.
I don't know if they could.
Well, it's not a question of whether or not they can. It's that, again, this is the part where I don't know how much of this is. But, like...
It's fine. No one listens to this.
They kind of said that they're going to. They just haven't confirmed it.
Cool.
So, I don't know what that looks like. If that's re-engineering the car to fit regulations, if that's a new version of the car.
Oh, that'd be a different car. Because the 499P, as it were, is based on Ferrari's own chassis, not a spec chassis. Right. So it would not meet... So, like, maybe it would be like a Garage 56 type thing. It's like, hey, we're here, but, like, we're not in class kind of thing.
Or they just engineer their current car around a different chassis.
I suppose.
We shall see.
Anyway, we shall see.
I only bring up Ferrari because Ferrari, aside from building a car in a different class, was also, people were hoping when they announced that they'd be in Le Mans, that they were like, oh, well, hopefully they come to Daytona or whatever. And obviously this was before they released the car.
Right.
The timing on it and obviously the classes just didn't work out that way. So
right.
But back to this one.
Back to that one. So the BMW, while it is very pretty, it was not very fast. And the car did suffer from reliability issues. So the number 25 car, had a total hybrid failure just an hour into the race. So they had to bring the car to the other side of the wall, as it is referred to.
Yeah.
And had to replace the whole hybrid system, which means pulling the transmission off, pulling the floor off.
And trying to get like part of the battery.
Right. So total hybrid failure for that car. So,
which for those of y'all that maybe didn't watch the race or you watched part of it, the best part to watch in person was seeing the BMW's like nose to tail.
Right.
Get apart from each other. Like, go. That is a squeaky ass chair.
That is a squeaky chair. I will refrain from moving.
Horror movie there for a second.
It is. That was horrible. I'm sorry.
No, but they were like nose to tail glued together. They could not get away from each other. But it was funny because they were both losing huge chunks of time to the rest of the GTP.
Right.
So like you see the rest of the field start to stretch out. You're like, oh man, let's see where the BMWs are. And it was just like on the banking, like,
yeah,
they're right next to each other still. All right, cool.
So the number 25 car had a total hybrid failure, and when it went back out, it was 132 laps down. So it had no hope of catching the rest of the GTP field. However, both cars did finish, which is exactly what BMW said they were hoping for.
Well, that's not only hoping but expecting.
Right. So both cars crossed the line, which in an endurance race is, I guess, all you can hope for. Now we're going to skip over the Cadillac because it had a rather successful weekend. Now we're going to talk about Nick and his Porsches. Nick Patty, that'd be that one. Nick,
yeah,
where were you boys at? What was happening?
They were probably having some schnitzel or something.
Well, they were broken. Let's be honest. Both of them, all the time. So
before we get into it, I'm going to ask you a question in the last episode.
Yes.
Do you think Nick Tandy's cut out for this GTP stuff?
I don't know. I mean, I can't say because it's the first race. It's a new car. You know, all these things.
So, for those of y'all listening, I remember when Nick Tandy was just a wee lad. I remember when he made his IMSA debut. I remember when he first became a Porsche factory driver. I remember all these things. Nick Tandy is like, you put him in a GT3, and I would take him, maybe besides Kevin Estra, over any other driver car combination in the GT3 world. Like, full faith. So this is not a slight against his ability.
Sure.
I think he did a stint at Cadillac for like the last 2 or 3 years with Action Express.
Probably.
I don't know why across 2 weekends when here's the thing. It's when it actually mattered. In testing, did he wad up a car? No. In testing, did he make unforced errors? No.
No.
When he needed to perform in both qualifying and in the race, he made unforced errors or wrecked the car. Well, the errors could be an innocent spin or wrecking the car. Which maybe I'm responding as kind of strongly to this because Ben's coughing up along. No, because I traveled halfway across the country and I wanted to see Porsche do well, and there was one car that could do that, and then mistakes happened. But when you're sitting there and you're watching, and all of Porsche's hopes are in one basket, in one car, the number 6, which already, because of Nick Tandy's mistake, was starting at the very back of the field, but through determination and perseverance and keeping the car clean, they made it up into a position where they're fighting for a podium, maybe the win, depending on what happens in the race.
Sure.
And then Nick Tandy decides, I'm just going to just chuck it up the inside of a car I'm lapping, completely misjudge the entrance speed and the exit of the corner, and just send it clean across the infield of grass, which then led to damaging the car that they then had to bring into the pit. So on top of the mistake, you now have an extra pit, which takes minimum 40 seconds in the pit, which for context, the lap times are like 130 something. So 40 seconds is like half a lap.
Right.
In the pit. And then there's no proof of this. We don't know, but Porsche will never release it because Porsche is just that way. They're like Mercedes in F1 when it comes to like how much they talk. The number 6 had a failure. Didn't finish the race. We don't know what it was. We don't know what it was caused from. But as anybody that watches endurance racing consistently knows, and I've been watching endurance races since I was like 3 and 4, going to the Salem 6 hours at the Glen and stuff like that. Any contact, any rubbing, dropping too off, excursions across the grass, riding the apexes, which isn't even a mistake, but doing that too often over the course of the race can lead to catastrophic mechanical failures. So to say that we know with any certainty that the mistake didn't then cause an issue later in the car, there is no way to know that.
Right.
All we don't know is whether or not for sure it caused it. But I would suspect that it did. So unfortunately for Porsche fans the world over, two of Nick Tandy's mistakes, well, all of them because he made two,
Right.
led to putting Porsche in a really horrible spot, especially the number 6 car, potentially cost Porsche finishing the race in the number 6 car. That is my alarm.
Oh my gosh. We're a mess today.
So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying Nick Tandy isn't a good driver. I'm not saying Nick Tandy isn't one of the legends of Porsche Motorsport. I'm not saying that Nick Tandy can't drive a 963 car faster than most people.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how fast you drive it if you make the mistakes, i.e. Mick Schumacher.
Yep.
Not saying he was a wicked fast driver, but if you make too many mistakes, at some point, you're just too much of a risk to the team. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's plenty of conversation to be had. So I want y'all, if you're listening and you actually care about Porsche, or, you watch the race and you watch so much of it that you saw all this stuff, please do leave a comment on YouTube. Let's start a discussion there. If you want to go to Instagram and comment on our post of when this episode goes live, please do. Let's start a discussion there. But I'm curious to know what other people think, because, Ben, you know this, Porsche's strength is never outright pace. It's not making mistakes, not braking, and having extremely... Like, Porsche drivers just don't make mistakes normally.
Right.
And so maybe that's why these two mistakes in the same race event, because it's not one weekend, it's two.
Sure.
Are so glaring to me. Like, I can't get over... Like, guys, it's like I saw a UFO. It's like the same driver making multiple mistakes in the same car in the same race weekend, and both of them having big effects in the sessions, qualifying in the race. I don't know.
Right. I don't know. I'm not gonna throw the blame on the car not finishing on Nick Tandy.
Well, I'm not either. I'm just saying
it is
mistakes.
Right.
Hurt their chances on top of the fact that the car ended up failing to finish.
Right. So I'll put up the video of the in-car of what happened there.
While you do that, go ahead and keep talking, and you can have the in-car up while you talk about Porsches, because I'm going to go make another cup of coffee. So,
well, there we go. So the 963 has the most new engine out of the 4 GTP cars on the field this year. So it has a 4.6-liter twin-turbo V8 in a hot V configuration. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, you have the V of... It is kind of upside down, yeah. But not all of it. Just the top half of it is upside down. So you have the V, and traditionally you have the intake manifold on top, and then your cylinder heads, and then your headers, your exhaust on the underside of the heads. And a hot V, it's backwards. And what they do that for is the turbos sit up top inside the V, and it allows the turbos to spool quicker, you get less lag, etc., etc. But that means you have 2 intake manifolds down low, and all that jazz. Of the 3 twin-turbo cars, the 963, the M Hybrid V8, and the ARX 06, it is the only hot V configuration car. And all I'm going to say is the other 2 turbo cars did not have engine failures, which is what caused the 963, the number 6 car, to not finish the race. It was on the banking, and then all of a sudden just lost the motor. You can see the car. It looks like it hit a wall. Just slows way down. I don't know. The thing about this and all these reliability issues and hybrid issues and all that stuff is they will be ironed out by the next race, or just about all of them. It's the first race. And while, yes, all the cars have done testing, mostly, Porsche did the most testing of any other team. More than Cadillac, more than Acura, and certainly more than BMW. So the fact that they had more issues than anyone else was quite surprising. I mean, they did a 36-hour-long endurance test in this car, so it's not like a endurance test of the motor didn't happen. It was something to do with either a mistake a driver made, not that I'm saying, that's what it was, but either a mistake a driver made, or it was, following closely behind other cars, because when they did the endurance test, that 36-hour-long test, and the other ones that they did, there were no other cars on the track. It was just them driving around. So it could have been, airflow problems when being behind GT cars or other LMP cars. So who knows what the issues...
We know with the hybrid systems in Formula One, obviously, there is the possibility, in particular in some weather, for the F1 cars to get way too hot, and not just
Yeah.
the brakes are a little hot, but the engine itself overheating.
Right.
So it could have been something where with all the, and that's the other thing about endurance racing. With 61 cars, there is almost no situation in which you have a bunch of clean air. It is all dirty, hot air. And one thing that was really cool to see in person, and we'll get to the experience later, but just on the topic of all the hot, dirty air from behind the cars, you can see it on TV, but it is something different to see it in person when the exhausts on the GT3s, which is basically the entire rear lower valence, is glowing orange and non-stop glowing orange. Seeing that in person. So imagine you're the car behind it and you're coming up on it. Just the ambient heat from the exhaust warming the air, let alone the air going out of the exhaust, let alone the air going over the car. So,
and that's the thing about vehicle testing is there's, as a person who builds cars, you can't plan for every situation. It's just not feasible. It doesn't exist. It's one of those things if it's like, oh, okay, well, if you sit behind a car or whatever, it's like, well, what if you're sitting in traffic, passing GT cars, LMP cars for 10 laps or whatever? What if you have a failure and you end up a couple laps down and you're just having to push extra hard and you're in traffic? Who knows? Yeah. So I'm assuming Porsche will have those ironed out and they will be right up there with Cadillac and hopefully Acura, I'm sure. Speaking of Cadillac, Patty, the car that I was most impressed by this weekend
without a doubt,
was the Cadillacs. The Acuras I had very high expectations for, and they delivered with a 1-2, the number 60 car followed by the number 10 car. But the Cadillacs, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is really impressive. Ran with almost no issues.
3, 4, 5th. There's only 3.
Yeah, sorry. I said too many numbers. They just threw in an extra car at the end. They were put another one in there. The car was so good. It took up both. No. Cadillac 3, 4, 5. Fitting the number 1 car, the number 2 car, the number 31 car. That car was exactly what we expected it to be. It was
loud, fast.
Obnoxious. It was loud, fast, and reliable.
Yeah.
So the Cadillacs had almost no issues, except for the number 31 car, the Whelen Engineering car. Am I saying that right? Whelen?
Yeah.
Okay. The Whelen Engineering car, the number 31 car, that'd be the red and black car, had a suspension failure. At one point, I don't know because I didn't write it in my notes and I suck. So the number 31 car had a suspension failure. It did make contact earlier in the race. So it had contact, I wouldn't say light contact, but it wasn't a wreck. It had contact with a GT car. Which one? I'm not sure. But it had contact with a GT car. It was determined okay when it came into the pits next. They replaced some of the bodywork, just pulled the rear clam off, swapped a new one on, because they can do that in a couple seconds. And the car went back out. And then about 6 hours after that contact, it had a right rear suspension failure.
Magic.
So it had to go into the pits. And while it was in the pits, they also swapped out the gearbox because that's where it mounts. So I'm assuming it was one of the mounting tabs on the gearbox that had to be replaced.
Right.
So it had a right rear suspension failure, but the car was able to drive itself back to the pits. That was the only issue that the Cadillacs had. They were solid. They didn't have hybrid issues. They didn't have motor issues. Nothing. Which, to be fair, of the motor combos, it was the most simple one. In a V8, basically the same thing they're running in the C8R. Fairly simple and straightforward. There's no turbos. There's no, you don't have wastegates. You don't have blow-off valves. You don't have lines going everywhere. It's just a simpler motor package. So I'm very pleased with that. And I think that the Cadillacs could quite easily win some races this year in IMSA.
Cadillac is going to be a championship challenger. We didn't really have any reason to write them off prior to the season, but after seeing how strong those cars are, I think when we get to tracks that are less banking, like less flat out, those Cadillacs are going to be
really fast.
While they were fast in the corners, I don't think we're any faster than the rest of the cars.
Right.
But under acceleration, they were just brutal. So Sebring, even with BOP, it's going to be interesting to see if it's enough for the Acuras to be slowed down. I think when we get to tracks like Mid-Ohio, the Glen, stuff like that, the Acuras are going to be actually, compared to even the Porsche, a little bit less well prepared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Cadillac, well done to you. Super reliable. Ran the race.
Yay. Congrats.
Right. Congratulations, Chevrolet. You can build a small block. That's really all we have to say about Cadillac. The number one car had some contact. There was an LMP3 car, I think, that spun. I'm sorry, this was a 24-hour race, so I don't remember everything. And it happened.
I was shuttling people and on trams and trolleys, so I didn't even get to see all the race.
So the number one car did have some contact. An LMP3 car spun in front of it and was sideways across the track into turn 2. Yeah, into turn 2 and was sideways across the track in the middle of the turn. So the number one car had to check up, come to a complete stop, and then got hit from behind by another LMP car. Wow, where'd that go? So the number one car had some damage, but nothing too serious that they couldn't fix in the next pit stop. Yeah. And Acura, speaking of reliability, apparently the number 60 car, the car that won the race, the car that looked unstoppable all weekend, apparently for the last 18 hours of that race, had transmission issues. Nick Patty, Nick Patty, which one is the Acura? Can you let us know which one is the Acura?
It's a full cup of coffee, so I'm gonna have to be a little gentle.
Be a little gentle here. It's okay. Take your time. That one. Thank you.
The slippy boy.
The not so slippy boy, but apparently the slippy boy. I don't know.
Not so slippy, but it's so strong that it pushes through the non-slippiness.
Exactly. Apparently, it had a transmission issue for the last 18 hours. What that issue was, Acura will never tell us.
Well, listen, they won the race. Kudos to them.
Right. Well done.
I think Meyer Shank or Michael Shank. I think he was definitely trying to play up. Listen, he wanted to sound like a badass. That's what I'm trying to say. He was like,
sure,
it's going to blow up. Are we coming to fix it? We're going to run it till it blew up. And damn it.
Right.
It's like, all right.
Right. It's okay. Calm down.
I'm pretty sure you had plenty of data to tell you that it wasn't going to blow. It was just like, there might be a problem. And you were like, well, let's not risk pitting. Because if the transmission was going to blow up, you weren't just going to leave them out there until it blows up and then you're out. You would have brought it in. And
right. So apparently it had transmission issues. I'm assuming it was something electrical, or maybe they had a pump that the sensor was a little wonky. I'm assuming it was nothing serious. You can't really have serious transmission issues for 18 hours straight and not have catastrophic failure.
Even if it was just like some of the gears grinding, like, oh, it's not shifting quite as smooth as it needs to. After 18 hours of grinding with how many shifts they do per lap,
right?
You'll left. Like, it can't.
Right. Nick Patty, anything else to say on GTP before we move to GTD?
Honest, while the cars are very cool, we had some good racing. The Daytona racing amongst GTP was less impressive than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Normally, we get the racing like we did in LMP2 at the finish with GTP. And if you have a caution with 20 minutes left, every car in the top class field is all in contention, all battling.
That's what I was stoked about, was we had that caution.
Any of that.
And you just see them all bunched up, and then the Acuras 3 laps later were 6 seconds ahead.
It's not GTP's fault. It's just with it being the first race. But that all being said, we've really never had a Daytona, I think, that I can remember, where the overall win was 5 seconds or more.
Right.
No, I'm sure there has been one. I'm just saying off the top of my head for the listener, I've watched every Daytona since I was maybe 2 or 3. Obviously, I don't remember when I was 4. But I genuinely can't think of a race finish where it wasn't coming down to,
wasn't super close.
Maybe the second to last lap, one of them goes for an overtake, makes a mistake, makes some contact, falls back a little bit. But we're talking the last 2 laps. Nothing like that this race. So the cars there was some good racing overnight. When the weather got colder, the cars seemed to be a little bit more tight-knit. But as the race went on, coming into the morning hours, coming into the second day, unfortunately, it was the Cadillacs had their own little battle. For most of the race, the Cadillacs and the Porsches were dueling because they were pretty pretty close on.
Pretty close. The BMWs were kind of off in their own world,
Right.
which they'll fix by Sebring. So that won't be an issue. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was really the Cadillacs versus the Porsches, and then every once in a while the Cadillacs versus the Acuras, and the Porsches would hop in there, and then they'd break, and then that'd be about it. Well, we don't have much to talk about with LMP2 and LMP3 because, frankly, we don't watch LMP2 or LMP3. However,
LMP2.
Except for the finish of LMP2, because my God, was it a good finish.
Yes.
I mean, like we just talked about, close finish, last lap, last corner, draft, pop out of the draft, pass him. I mean, won the race by a splitter. So the number 55 Proton Competition Orica LMP2 car beat the number 4 CrowdStrike Orica car by 0.01 seconds. It literally won by a splitter.
And not even a whole splitter.
Yeah. I mean, watching it on TV, they had a nose shot. You could see the cars coming towards you, coming across the line, and you genuinely didn't know. And that was fun as well because the announcers also didn't know. They were like, "Who won?" And then they're just sitting there waiting for the leaderboard to update. I didn't watch LMP2 or LMP3 that closely, and mainly it's just because you don't know the drivers as well.
Right.
I'd like to follow it a bit more. The racing's always good. LMP3 was pretty dull. The guy that won the race, whose name I don't know, I'll put it up here. But the car that won LMP3 won by 11 laps. It wasn't even close. LMP3 cars had a ton of reliability issues this weekend.
Which is also weird because LMP3 is literally just a small block V8. And
right. They're like the most
simple,
tame of the prototype cars there. And to be fair, it could just be people's driving styles. It could have been that they updated all the LMP3 cars for this year.
Right.
But I mean, we had fires, we had cars blown up, tons of cars crashed. I mean, there was like 6 engine failures or something like that. The LMP3 had a bunch of issues. So LMP3 wasn't super interesting, and the finish of LMP2 was super interesting. But what Nick and I really like to talk about is GTD. Because
GTD, we mean all of it. Pro and GTD.
All of it. GT Pro and non, because it's a bit too similar, I think. I feel like GTD... Well, no. Makes for great racing. But I think GTD Pro should be GTD Pro, and GTD should be GTD AM. Like, I think it really should be...
in the class.
I think as far as classes, like, they should be split a bit more. Like, I don't like that GTD out-qualified GTD Pro.
See, here's the other thing.
Seems backwards to me.
GTD, I know it's GT Daytona, but just call it GT3, that's the class, the type of car, GT3, and then you have the Pro and AM class. Like,
how simple.
Pros and AMs.
Right.
For GT3s.
Right. They're the same cars. They're the same cars. There is no difference between a GTD Mercedes and a GTD Pro Mercedes. They are the same car.
Is a Grand Touring car.
Yes.
A GT3 is a race car. So a Grand Touring Daytona sounds like a Bentley at Daytona. But a GT3 sounds like a race car.
Like a race car.
And then you have the Pro and the
AM. How simple.
Pros as Pro drivers. The AM as AM drivers.
Oh, okay, I see. IMSA, you're welcome to take that one. You can have that one for free.
Yeah, hey, IMSA, don't worry about a commission or anything. You take that, you run with it, have some
on the house. But GTD was really interesting this weekend.
Interesting for the wrong reasons if you're a Porsche fan.
So we'll get straight into that. We were talking about balance of power earlier with the Acuras. Same difference. We were talking about the balance of performance with the Acuras. And there were 2 cars that, were very hyped for this weekend. And that was the 911 GT3R. We're just down to 1 R, right? It's not the RSR, it's just the R.
RSR is dead.
Right. So the 911 GT3R and the Ferrari
Yeah.
296 GT3, I think is what it's called.
So this falls into one of the larger talking points, which, I want a job with IMSA, so I'm not going to talk too bad. But
sure,
they kind of screwed up the balance of performance for every class.
Yeah.
Any new car was hurt, basically.
Yep.
You may say, well, all the GTB cars were new cars, but some were not hurt. The Acura and the Cadillacs carried a lot of technology over from the DPI era. And, spoiler, Acura and Cadillac were the only cars in DPI. Brands, same brands. The new brands to the top class of IMSA were Porsche and BMW. Those two cars were hurt
struggled
poorly with BOP. And BOP and GT with the new cars. And you may say, well, Porsche Ferrari ran last year in IMSA. It doesn't make... The 296 is a brand new car. And then the 992 generation GT3R is a brand new car. So those cars were the ones that were hurt. Now, the only car that I would say wasn't hurt as severely, but it still was mid-pack. It was not fighting for the win, was the BMW M4 GT3.
Right.
It ran for part of the year in Europe last year.
Right.
This is the first full year of IMSA competition, to my knowledge. But even then, R&D and some time with it to figure with WEC or SRO in Europe, how do we need to balance the cars so that they're competitive? There was already some of that market research with the BMW. There was not that with the Porsche and the Ferrari.
I think the BMW, just from what we saw this weekend, which, once again, first race of the season, all the cars are going to have issues. They're going to be ironed out by next race. So what we say today,
when we get to in a month or 2 months,
when we get to Sebring, which is March 12th, I think, or no, March 18th.
Not wait.
It's March
party for that.
So March 18th is the 12 hours of Sebring, and everything we say right now could be completely irrelevant. Then the Acuras the ARX06 could be the slowest car on the grid, and they could both break. We don't know. But right now for the GTD cars, the GT3Rs were just, well, frankly, they were just slow. They just weren't there. And the Ferraris were the exact same way. And it's one of those things of, if you look at the Mercedes and the Aston, which are basically the same car.
Right, same motor.
Because a new Vantage, a street car, is the same thing as a new AMG GT. They use the same twin bi-turbo.
But the Vantage looks better.
The Vantage does look better, especially the Heart of Racing car, where you got the satin blue.
So
fantastic.
Do you remember when I ran into Andy Lawley at the Ferrari Challenge race at COTA?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I commented talking about how glad I was to see him racing the Aston and stuff and how it looked great and blah, blah, blah. And he liked the comment. But Shelby got the Magnus race.
Nick's famous.
Which I commented, I was like, not to mention the holy grail of motorsport shirts. Is their shirt is the Monty Python, the Holy Grail.
Right.
Also, super cool thing that happened. On my
Tangent.
Instagram, I reposted one of the 963 posts. Mathieu Jaminet liked it, which means
Nick's famous.
Instagram. And I was like, FAF champion 2 years running and now a Porsche factory 963 driver.
Nick's famous, everybody. Calm down. Don't get near him.
Listening to the podcast, which if you are, I have plenty of FAF stuff to send to you so you can sign it. Ben, where's your flag?
I'll pull it off the wall real quick. So the GT3R.
Well, no, the 2 Gemini drives that one.
Yeah, that'd be that one on the bottom. Gosh, I hate that. Nick, we're talking about GTD cars here. So the Porsches and the Ferraris were slow. The Porsches I expected to be fast. The Ferraris I had no expectations for.
Yeah, I had no expectations for, but I'm also more surprised, I think, by the Ferrari than I am.
Well, here's the thing.
The Porsches, we expected to be fast. I'm not surprised they weren't. It's a new car, but also IMSA, just looking at the last 2 years, Porsche's done really well.
Right.
So them not even knowing how good the 992 car was going to be, they probably already had more BOP penalties up the sleeve. Because Porsche, FAF won, the same car, same team, won the last 2 Daytonas and the last 2 championships. There's no way IMSA was going to allow a three-peat. And I'm not saying IMSA had it out for FAF. But just in terms of, okay, Porsche has been doing really well lately. Let's make sure we don't have them run away with it.
Right.
Oh, but then also the new generation car wasn't as good as the last gen. So
the Ferrari, I thought, for starters, great looking race car. Great looking car.
The best looking car.
Looks so good.
We were at Thursday night when we arrived in Daytona because that was the only restaurant that we saw that we recognized,
Mhm.
like out on Daytona Beach. And while we were in there, the entire Settler management team for the Ferrari 296, the blue and the green car, got
Uh-huh.
out of a
Ooh,
rental.
that's a good car.
Yeah, it was one of the best liveries there. Got out
Right.
of a rental car, Ford Mustang convertible. And they
Woot.
hopped out and they all walked because they were going to walk the beach. And one of the drivers got out, but I didn't recognize it until I looked it up afterwards. And so we're sitting in IHOP, and I turn. I see like one guy in the Settler jacket. Oh my God. I look back, another guy in a Settler. I was like, "What? These aren't fans." And I saw all the credentials and the hats and the blue sweatpants. I was like, "Huh, yo,
Cool.
I thought they were coming to IHOP." They came into IHOP. I was going to get a photo, like just chilling with the Ferrari team.
Sure.
In IHOP.
So the 296 is, I mean, it's a completely different car from the 488. Different engine, different chassis, different bodywork. It's a clean slate. It's totally brand new. So it was either going to be
Really
a
good.
rocket. It was either going to be a rocket ship and run away with it, or they were going to do exactly how they did and be
Or
at the back,
dog water. Yeah.
or where they were. But once again, it'll all be ironed out by the next race. But yeah, the M4. Now that you bring it up, I kind of forgot about the M4.
Right.
It was kind of one of those like just stuck in the middle. It wasn't in the front.
Right.
The one car that impressed me though out of GTD was that number 3 car. That Corvette, the lone Corvette hanging in there.
The Corvettes, the C8 has never quite found its stride. And
Right.
obviously for Chevy racing fans, tough. For me, I didn't have a problem because Chevy really is the only manufacturer that consistently challenges Porsche, like
Mhm.
year after year after year for the last 20 years.
25.
Yeah, but I'm really glad, especially in light of the Porsche's not doing well. My wife and I,
Mhm.
those new listeners, we both own fifth-gen Camaros. I'm married into a Chevy family. So we were
The
happy that,
the inferior generation of Camaro, but yes.
we can't all have straight axle fourth-gen spin.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm glad you
All of
understand.
us are so privileged to
Woot.
be amongst the elite.
You understand. You were saying Corvettes.
No, but we were glad. The Corvette also, this race sounded better.
It did. It did.
On the downshifts was like it sounded like one of the Lamborghinis in terms of how loud and violent the downshifts were. Which I think Lamborghini was really the standout GT car. The Corvette would stand out because it hasn't been great in recent years.
Sure. And there was only one.
Was a new car for IMSA WeatherTech. It was the Lamborghini Challenge car that they've been running last year. But it was a new car to endurance racing, and it's a new car to the WeatherTech series. And it was
It was really good.
It was fast. It was loud. It was good looking.
Yep.
I mean, the Lambos really did do well. I can't believe I don't know this. Who actually won GT? I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, and I'm like, wait, who won? Oh, Aston. Aston won. It was an Aston 1 too. And then Aston won in GTD.
No, Mercedes won. The WeatherTech car. Yeah, the WeatherTech car.
That's right. Then it was Aston in second in GTD.
Yep.
Aston had a 1-2 in GTD Pro because Andy Lawley was in the second place car in GTD. Carter Racing car, I think, won in Pro.
Let's see. Let me scroll here. Sorry, we're real professional. The car that won GTD was, it was the Heart of Racing car, the number 27 Aston GT3, and then the car that won GTD Pro is the number 79 car, the WeatherTech car, the white WeatherTech AMG GT3. So yeah, that's what that is. Also, I'm surprised that the Lexus is still as competitive as it is.
I'm going to be honest. I was surprised it was competitive at all.
Right.
But here's the thing is once it proved it was competitive, I don't know if I'm surprised that it's still competitive. Like when Lexus ran that car for the first few seasons, I was like, wow, it's competitive. But
Right.
once I got used to it being competitive, I don't know if I'm surprised still competitive. Because at the end of the day, guys, when in doubt, if it's not a flat six, a V8 will always do the trick in racing. Like,
Yep.
guys, we are how many hundreds of years past like the advent? We're like 120 years past the advent of a good old 8-cylinder.
Yep.
And it just keeps pumping, brother. Keeps pumping.
Nick, Pat, do you have anything else to add to Daytona racing wise?
Yeah, I would just say that while the GTD, the GTD field overall didn't have the same players that we thought running for the lead, I would still say overall this was probably one of the most competitive GTD fields we've seen. Even with the Porsches being some of the slowest. I mean, they were still like excuse me again, the AO Racing team.
Oh my gosh.
With Kevin Estra that was running the Swap Shop T-Bird livery. Finished 14th out of 23. Their first race in IMSA, their first run at Daytona, in one of the bottom two cars, field finish. So,
yeah,
like even with us seeing how slow the Porsches were, even with Faf finished 5th. So
yeah, no, Faf had a good finish. Yeah,
I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, it sucks that the Porsches weren't constantly fighting for a win. But for the sum total of it all, really tight GTD field.
Right.
Really competitive racing. And also, I think this is probably the overall best-looking GT field we've had since GTS with the Corvettes and the Vipers and the GT2s and all that. Because the BMW, one of my favorite BMW race cars, like, since the E46 M3.
It's a good-looking car now, isn't it?
The Lamborghini with that fin coming up over the engine cover. So hot. I mean, the Huracan
looks good.
A good-looking race car. The new 992 with that light bar all the way across the back and that front end looking a little bit narrower, like it looks a little bit like a shark in the front. Super hot. The Ferrari.
Great car.
The Lexus, I've never really been a fan.
Whatever.
The Mercedes have always been good. I don't think they're the hottest, but they're good.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm probably missing something, but just a really good.
The Astons look good.
Oh yeah, the Astons. So good. And then just the liveries. Like, we're in a golden age of liveries. The Liquid Moly BMW livery, fire.
Good.
The livery, even hotter with the black. The Swap Shop livery. I am so grateful we're getting more and more tribute because GPX Racing, I want them to come over from Europe. Please. Winning stuff in Europe, ran the Gulf Blue and Orange, ran the Hippie livery, ran the Martini livery. We had the Porsche factory team for the last few years running the Coca-Cola livery, the Rothmans, the Pink Pig. I love and I guess it's really with Porsche, the emphasis on running these vintage liveries. And we're getting a website built for the Clutch Dump, and I'm going to write an article about the power of brand marketing. Like 40 years on from running that livery, I mean, guys, when that livery was unveiled, that had us T-Bird livery, Ben, did you see anything on social media that was motorsport related and not covering that livery?
Yeah, that was
that livery.
Yeah.
So there's if you're a race team and you're looking for some coverage and some attention, guys,
find an old livery, remake that.
A sick old livery. Like, I want the old Al Holbert livery, the dark blue with the yellow and the red stripes up over the fenders. Give us some of that. Run some old liveries, guys. Run the Paul Newman Hawaiian Tropic livery. Like,
that'd be good.
Yeah. So, anyways, those are my final comments. But I think the whole marketing of GTP Racing Reborn. I think we're looking at Racing Reborn kind of across the charts. Final comment on the racing. Just get rid of LMP3. It's running in Michelin Endurance Pilot Challenge. It's running in BMW M Endurance Challenge. Oh wait, no, it's not. It's running in the Michelin Pilot Challenge.
Right.
Leave it there.
Right.
Slower, smaller prototypes running with slower, smaller GT cars. Just let that be its own thing. And if you're good with an LMP3, you get up into LMP2 or GTP. Leave it its own separate thing.
Yep.
Because LMP2 was boring the entire race, except for the finish. So even LMP2, I'm not too convinced. But anyways.
Yep. Anyways, Nick Patty, can we get a few short stories from your ventures at Daytona?
For those of y'all listening, Ben is not chomping at the bit because it's just going to be hearing what he missed out on. But
This is true. It's fine. It all comes back around in June.
Well, exactly. When you have to walk 35 miles to see two corners.
That'll be fine.
I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter than I did in the episode that never made it to air, and I'm going to choose a few more special stories. But
please,
one was riding. Oh, there comes one of the dogs.
Hi, dogs.
Oh, you can almost see him. Almost not though. The first one was riding the Ferris wheel with my lovely wife.
Sure.
We all that watch Daytona consistently, the Ferris wheel is one of the landmarks at Daytona, and I am definitely afraid of heights. Never been on a Ferris wheel. We got a little bold. I got a little brave, and rode the Ferris wheel with my wife, and it was absolutely breathtaking to see Daytona from that high up. It was super cool.
Yeah, it looks cool.
So if you're ever in Daytona, it is worth it. It was $10 a person.
Sure.
I mean, like hell, I spend $10 at Cane's. Like,
yeah,
the Daytona Ferris wheel, and that is much more worth it. Not saying that Cane's is bad because that shit awesome. Second story. I was walking the paddock before the race. Good coffee. And
good coffee.
Towards me. My wife goes, "Babe, that's Wayne Taylor," and I'm like, "It is Wayne Taylor.
Oh,
my favorite South African." And I walk up,
my favorite South African.
And I say, Ben's like, "Shut up." I walk up to him and I'm like, "Hey, good luck this weekend, Wayne." And I pat him on the shoulder. And he, after putting a whole cough drop in his mouth, goes, "Thanks, Mike." And I was like, that was one of the coolest things I've ever done.
Perfect.
I have now fist bumped Tony Stewart, and I have now patted Wayne Taylor on the shoulder. Both highlights of my life, if you want to see how shallow my life is. Getting to
real interesting
knuckle contact with Tony Stewart when he's not punching me, because he does that to drivers. And then patting Wayne Taylor on the shoulder.
Happens.
Apparently had a itchy throat. So highlights, but also I got
long weekend
ready. So
That's a dude.
I'm gonna post that on the Instagram. But also, as I'm telling the story, I'm gonna just pull up a photo. So I wanted to try to get a photo with him, but with how much Michael Andretti's been in the news, it's a little intimidating to just walk up to one of the most famous men on the planet in motorsports and be like, "Can I get a photo, please?
Can I get a picture, please?"
So there he is.
Oh my gosh, he exists.
Legend, strutting his stuff. So anyway, I couldn't get my phone out in time, and I was nervous, so I rattled off a few photos as he walked by, just for proof that I saw him.
He does exist. He's a real person.
Another cool story. I was sitting in the Conoco Minolta Business Center, and Max Angelelli walked right past me, which literally in the mid-2000s class of drivers, my favorite driver. Max the Axe in that SunTrust Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac Daytona, or not the Cadillac, the Dallara Daytona prototype.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Literally childhood hero stuff. So to see him was super cool. I think I've seen him a few times when I was a kid, like in autograph sessions where you walk by. I probably have his autograph somewhere, but I just don't remember it. So seeing him and remembering it was
super cool.
So cool. Let's see. What else was there? Well, I mean, we got VIP Paddock Club. That's what the bracelets are, which was awesome. So sitting up on top of these pit patios, as they were called, overlooking front straight, was super cool. Free beer. Granted, it was only Stella Artois. I'm not really a fan, but hey, it's free.
Whatever. It's free.
It's free real estate. So that was cool. Let's see. I'm trying to think. I mean, it is something. It's so cool. I sound like a child, like a little fanboy. I was walking around one of the most storied tracks in motorsport in Puma Porsche Turbo shoes, which is cool.
Yep.
The 963 is running turbos, so all my turbo stuff that I got because I was like, "Oh, turbos, race cars, Porsches, that's cool," is now like applicable. Wearing my shirt with big old block Porsche letters down the sleeve, wearing Porsche Motorsport stuff, walking around for the global racing debut of the heir apparent to the 962 and the 919 was like it's so hard to describe the energy and the hype and the just like nobody cared who won. It was just
right
here. Wow,
right.
This is incredible. So, anyways, there's more stories. I'll be going through. I took a camera that Ben sold Sam, and then I bought from Sam, and I took a lot of photos on it. So once I get paid this week, I'm going to go get those photos developed. So I'll be posting fairly consistently on
stuff.
What was going on from the track through the perspective of a film camera. But guys, Daytona is incredible. If you ever get the chance, it is really worth going. So please do take the chance to do that. We're going to be doing a lot more posts, like I said. And guys, the racing season has started.
Woot, we're back.
We are kind of back in full force. We should be seeing a lot more automotive stuff kind of as the months progress. So stay tuned for some interviews. We're going to do some stuff with House of Cards. I didn't get to meet up with them at Daytona, but we're going to be doing more stuff at COTA. Last story. Our motel was a 1960s Art Deco hotel.
Sure.
On Daytona Beach. It is so cool to come from the track and then walk the sunset on the beach. Like,
sure.
What place do you get to do that?
I think there.
Well, maybe Long Beach is the only other one I can think about in California.
Maybe.
But yeah, I mean, I got to. My grandfather went there. For those of y'all that don't know, my grandfather that raced Porsches from the 70s all the way through the 2000s. So it was really special sharing that experience with him. And yeah, my brother and my wife, and my brother's going through a bunch of photos. He got some videos, so we'll
sick
in all of it. But Ben, yeah,
fantastic.
Concludes.
Boy, well, that about does it for our definitely first recording of episode 32.
Oh, of course.
If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Whatever platform you're listening to us on, whether it's Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Pandora, Apple, Google Podcasts, any and all of the above, give us a follow, give us a rating, give us a review. It helps us out a ton. If you're watching this, thank you very much. On the YouTubes at the Clutch Dump Pod, please subscribe. Please turn on the notification bell. Please like the video. Please share the video. Please comment down below what you thought about the video. As always, thank you for watching. This has been episode 32 of The Clutch Dump. We'll see you next time.